Cuba is under blockade for ideological reasons. Finland, Canada, and Panama are on notice for their resources. And Iran's oil and the Hormuz Strait, the jugular of world shipping, are the intended spoils of a bombing campaign the like of which the world has never seen. This is the year 2026 of the Common Era. But where is the international law, you ask? The answer to that question calls for a look at the fortunes of Institut de Droit International, the Institute of International Law, the winner of the 1904 Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, the Nobel Peace Prize, not given to a general or a statesman or a head of state, but to a scholarly body championing international law. Let us explore how that happened and what has happened to international law since. International law has always been a law without a sheriff. Its entire history is the story of whether the world could live with that and what happens when it decides it can't. In 1873, a group of jurists gathered in the Belgian city of Ghent with a quietly radical idea: not to end war by force, not through revolution, but through law, through the patient, unglamorous work of writing down the rules by which civilized states ought to behave toward one another. They called their organization Institut de Droit International, the Institute of International Law. Its founding members came from across Europe and the Americas: professors, judges, diplomats. People who believed that the chaos of interstate violence was not inevitable, that it could be disciplined, the way domestic violence had been disciplined, by putting norms on paper and persuading powerful actors to feel bound by them. Over the following 3 decades, the Institute produced a body of work that was foundational. It codified the laws of war, what was permissible on the battlefield, how prisoners ought to be treated, what protections civilians deserved. It was unglamorous, technical work. It was also arguably the most serious attempt anyone had yet made to build a legal architecture for a world of sovereign states. In 1904, the Norwegian Nobel Peace Prize gave it to it, not to a general who had stopped a war, not to a statesman who had signed a treaty, to an institution, to the idea that law itself, the slow, imperfect, contested work of writing rules, was a form of peacemaking. It was, in retrospect, the high watermark of a certain optimism. The world was in the middle of what historians would later call the first age of globalization. Trade was growing. Telegraph cables crossed the oceans. Educated people across Europe genuinely believed that commerce, reason, and law were making mass interstate war obsolete. The Hague Peace Conferences of 1899 and 1907 seemed to confirm it. They were wrong, of course, but they were not foolish to try. The dream survived 1904 by 10 years. Then came the trenches. The First World War did not merely kill 17 million people, it killed the confident belief that law, commerce, and civilization were sufficient brakes on state violence. The Hague Conventions were signed by all the major powers. They were violated almost immediately. International law, it turned out, had no enforcement mechanism. It worked when states wanted it. When they didn't, it was paper. The League of Nations failed. Japan invaded Manchuria. Italy invaded Ethiopia. And yet, out of the second catastrophe came the most serious legal architecture the world had ever built: the United Nations Charter, the Nuremberg tribunals. The International Criminal Court was founded in 2002. Slobodan Milosevic was put on trial. The responsibility to protect doctrine was adopted by the entire UN membership in 2005. International law seemed finally to have teeth.
The sentence is life imprisonment.
But a law without a sheriff only works if the powerful choose to be bound by it. The Iraq War of 2003 was launched without Security Council authorization, and in 2025, the government of the world's preeminent military power declared in effect that the framework itself was a fiction. The 2025 prize was awarded in an atmosphere thick with American political pressure. The winner physically handed it to the president who had ordered a military intervention in her own country. The contrast with 1904 is not merely ironic, it is diagnostic. A law without a sheriff only survives if enough people decide it is worth defending. The question of whether we are still those people, that is the question the Nobel Committee's 2025 choice, wittingly or not, put on the table. This is Nobel Notes at Awards Worldwide, where the world's greatest minds live forever.